Welcome back, everybody. I hope I've given it enough time. The first few seconds sometimes cut off, so I'll start now. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to Beard of Darkness Book Reviews. I'm really excited tonight to be talking. Oh, 1 second. Sorry about that. I kept YouTube open in the back, and that totally messes my sound up. So as I was saying, I'm really excited to be here with ML Spencer. How are you tonight?
I'm doing really good. It's incredible to just actually have a Saturday. I've been working nonstop for about 15 days straight, and so I'm relaxed. And that's a good feeling.
What's that? I said that's rough. Like those days get long.
Yeah, they do. They really do. But I'm happy to be here with you. I'm happy to be talking about fantasy because let me tell you, that's what I would rather be doing.
I love that. So the first time I watched, I don't usually, when I know I'm going to talk to somebody, it's I don't look up a lot of interviews. I want to have a fresh experience. So, but I did get my introduction to you for the first time. So I watched you during TBRCon, talking with Paulini and Ryan and Beth, and it was really fun to see the ideas being jogged back and forth. But of course, I'd heard of Dragon Mage many times, and finally decided to the cover. Whoa, that is just one of the best covers, and honest to God, it's got to be like a top 3 for me.
Oh my God.
How excited were you when you got that? Like the proof, you're like, he did it. I don't know who did your cover. Who was it?
That is he's named Sitiwat Dechenkampo. And I stumbled upon him he literally contacted me a few years ago on Facebook, and he's like, I'm just trying to get started in cover art. Can you try me out? I'll work kind of cheap. And I'm like, okay, well, let's try it. And so he made a couple of covers for me, which I actually I never used, but I just kind of kept them around in the background. And I'm like, wow, this guy's really good. And so I started recommending him to my friends and stuff like that. And so he just started getting better and better. And so when I had the idea for the Dragon Mage cover, I'm like, dude, this is my man. He's gonna do it. And he freaking delivered. He so delivered.
Saying it as mildly as possible, he delivered for sure. The colors I would have never thought. I'm not an artistic person in visual art, and the color scheme as well as just its fear, ferocious, but it's also kind of I don't know, kind of reassuring in a way because it's not really harsh. It's just beautiful. Yeah. It is.
He did a really excellent job. I kind of drew him like a stick figure idea of what I wanted, that like a stick figure, and then he created that out of it. So that in itself is just incredible talent.
Yeah, I haven't had. So I've asked a few different illustrators to be on the show. They are so busy. If you're a good illustrator, cover artist, formatter, editor, you're staying busy all year long. So hopefully soon, I'll be able to chat with one. But it's exciting to be able to just talk with the indie crowd. That's kind of where my niche has been. And you guys do this all, yourself. You hire people. I think that's brave, it's courageous. And at the end of the day, you don't have a publisher kind of putting you in a box. And I love to see the results of that. And I think it's becoming, I don't know the word, maybe, I don't know, it's more relevant. That's not a good word either. It's giving the published authors and the publishers, quality. There's you don't have to be a published author. I have to say, and I'm glad I haven't said this to anybody, and I'm glad I'm going to say it to you face to face because I've waited for this. It's a top 5 book for me. Dragon Mage just blew my mind. And I'll tell you why. Yeah, Aram's character was it. I related to Aram, just that was me. There's so many aspects. If somebody said, what would you say that encompassed this character? It's like that innocence, shy, caring. I just related with him more than I'd ever related with any other character in a book, and it was exciting and emotional to read. So yeah, I just wanted to let you know that face to face, but I'll kind of just start this interview the way I did when I first started. And I really like this format. Kind of start, when did you find this love for literature? Were you young?
Oh boy, I was super young. I was reading from a like really young age. I mean, I was reading like 1,000-word books by the time I was in like, sorry, 1,000-page books by the time I was in like third grade. And I fell in love with books, and I would become obsessed with books because I get really hyper fixated on things. I get super passionate about things, and that's all I'll do. You know, like I think the first book I really fell in love with was Where the Red Fern Grows.
Ooh,
If you've ever heard of that one, it's
I
about
have definitely heard. I haven't read it yet.
yeah, it's about a boy and his two dogs. And I was so passionate about that. All I did was think dog. And it had such an impact on my life. It was just huge. And then from there, it went on. I think The Black Stallion. I lived and breathed horses for so many years, just crazy about it. And then when I finally got into fantasy, I think the first book I ever read was actually, I remember this pretty well. My grandma had bought me this whole like package of Nancy Drew books back in the day. And I'm like, Nancy Drew, ew, I don't want to read Nancy Drew. And
That's
she
funny.
bought my male cousin like the entire Chronicles of Thomas Covenant series, which is a dark fantasy series. And he felt bad for me. So he actually traded me the Chronicles of Thomas Covenant for Nancy Drew. And that was my first fantasy series. And I just loved it.
That's a cool story, you know. Hey, I have something you might want, and you have something I might want. You want to switch? I love that. So there's kind of a little background on me, real quick, just so you understand where I was coming from. I didn't find love for literature until I was 29, and I'm 33. I'll be 34 this year, and I found it in like a very vulnerable a way. Like I was sick, and I just couldn't take those physical adventures anymore. And I picked up a book called, in fact, I have it right here, Ordinary Monsters. And it's just, it's like the adult, I hate to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's an adult Harry Potter, but it has nothing like Harry Potter. It's a dark academia, but there's many aspects to this story. And the academia part isn't as big as that relation makes it sound, but it's like this dark Victorian London feel. Either way, it's just what got me out of the moment, and it let me take those adventures that I couldn't at the moment, and absolutely had the same experience with Dragon Mage, because I am a sucker for a chunker. And what that means, it's like, for me, I know there's going to be good characters, good plot, good world building, but I don't always get that with chunkers. Of course, you know, we like what we like, but I really related to this, and to hear that you found your passion for fantasy at a young age makes sense. Your prose did it for me, because I didn't have to stop and think. I didn't have to refresh myself. I knew exactly where I was picking up every night when I went to bed. So that's for me, that's rare. I usually have to have a little bit of a refresher. Who are some of the authors or books that caught your eye? I know you said Where the Red Fern Grows, but expanding on the fantasy, maybe a little later years.
Oh, sure, absolutely. Of course, you know, when I was young, it was always like The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings. You know, that was huge back when I was growing up back in the Dark Ages. Anne McCaffrey, her Dragon Riders of Pern series. I mean, I'm sure you saw there was a lot of Anne McCaffrey kind of throwbacks there. I love her dragons. Kind of moving forward in time. Oh gosh, Raymond D. Feist, the Magician series. Yeah. Robert Jordan was huge for me. My goodness, Robert Jordan. I mean, literally, when I was in college, I had joined like a Dark Friends like social group that would like meet, and we would bring all of our books to like TGI Fridays, and we would sit there like, okay, who killed Asmodean? You know,
That sounds like a blast.
it was like the most nerdy thing you can possibly imagine. But yeah, it was thrilling, absolutely thrilling.
I have never, when I was in high school, if you would have told me, you know, hey, when you're 33, you're going to be obsessed with reading and wanting to write. I would have just like, dude, you don't even know me. So I wish that I don't necessarily feel that I wish I could go back and change anything. But what I do see that when authors that I talk with start younger, your imaginations are more, it's like a muscle, you know? And I've noticed that I've had to build upon that a little harder, being a little bit older, finding literature. So I like to hear those foundational stories. I wanted to throw something. Tim, this isn't the first time he's told me this, because I've mentioned your book a few times in my lives. Timothy Wolf. Want to shout out Dragon Mage for being one of the best fantasy books I've ever read. And yes, he's
Timothy.
The last comment I think was equally as cool. He said, I don't remember what live it was. He's like, dude, Dragon Mage was a masterpiece. How cool.
That's so nice. That really is.
And I saw Petrick, man. Petrick absolutely adored it. There's wonderful blurbs too. Like, it's just an all-around wonderful hardcover that I couldn't believe wasn't a special edition. It's just even the naked hardcover. It's like gorgeous on the show. I'm a dust jacket guy. Some people, and I just found this out, some people throw those away, and that just killed me a little inside.
No!
Yeah,
that's awful. It's blasphemy.
it is, because it's like I have to keep this on. So sorry, I my brain went mush for a second. What novels, I know you've written a lot of novels. So what series prior to the Rivenworld series did you write first? So where did you start?
Well, that probably would be my Rivenworld Saga series. It's about a 5-book, really super dark fantasy series. I started that back in college, honestly. I wrote the first book, and I tried really hard to get it published. Nobody would look at it, and so I cried a lot, and I threw it into my sock drawer, and I didn't look at it again for like 10 years. And then one day I got it out, I dusted it off, and I said, okay, we're going to try this again. And so I rewrote the whole darn thing, like literally, like completely differently. And I threw it out there again. And once again, nobody wanted it. And so I went back into the sock drawer, and it kind of stayed there for a long time until a friend of mine read it, and they're like, wow, this is really good. You got to get this published. So I tried one more time, and nobody wanted it. So I'm like, okay, forget it. And that was like right at the beginning of when self-publishing was kind of just really starting to become a thing. It was back in like 2011, I think it was. And I self-published it. But the problem is I had no idea what I was doing. Like literally, I had hand drawn the cover. Sure. It was so bad. I didn't know how to market it. So it won an award. Yay. But it completely flopped. And nobody looked at it until I think it was around 2015. I released a prequel. And what inspired me to write that is finally somebody read Dark Mage, which was the name of that book. Mm-hmm. And she had some questions about it. I'm like, those are really good questions. I don't know the answer to. I better write a prequel.
Yeah, let's expand on it. I like that.
Yeah, so that's what I did. I wrote a prequel, and then the prequel kind of took off, is what happened. And then I got to write the whole series that I always wanted to write. And that kind of just drug me, I guess, out there a little bit.
I like that you covered it's like a super dark. Now I'm an epic fantasy lover, but then it's like the other side. I have I like the extremes. I like really epic, vast story, taking up the whole map kind of thing. Then I also really enjoy a good dark fantasy book. So that's kind of why I ask about previous books, because Dragon Mage was the first book of yours that I read, and I'm excited to kind of go back and hearing that from you that it's dark. I know that I'll really enjoy that. I love a dark book. There's just something. I don't know, it's maybe taboo. Is that maybe we're not supposed to like all these. It depends how dark, right? So there's some I've read a couple books I had to stop reading just because the shock value was the only reason
Oh yeah.
An author would throw something super dark, and I couldn't. If it's part of the story, I dig it. But you know, anything other than that, like shock value, kind of throws it off for me. So Ren War, and series after that too.
Yeah, there's a series after that, but honestly, it's just a continuation of the same world. So, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'd love to know that too. So, okay, that makes sense. I was talking to Anthony Ryan yesterday, and you kind of touched on a similar topic that he did. It reminded me where you write a book and you go back and find an opportunity to expand on it. And that's got to feel cool. How do you get those creative juices flowing? You know, because he also said, and I'm sure, and a lot of authors have said this, it's like the consistency to do it, you know, day in and day out, or as much as you can, is important.
Wow, that's a great question. I think what I do most of the time is like when I drive to work and stuff like that, I listen to super epic music, like Two Steps from Hell, stuff like that. And I just get movies playing in my head, and the scenes just kind of unfold for me. And I mean, I know it's probably, you know, it's my subconscious working, and but at the same time, you know, it's almost like it happens for me. You know, sometimes I'll even like wake up honestly and have stuff like plotted for me the next morning, which is just weird. But I mean, it's my subconscious working at, you know, at night because
Yeah.
like I said, I get hyper fixated on stuff and I don't stop thinking about it all night long, all day long, even when I'm sleeping, and it just doesn't turn off. So I think that's like one of the places it comes from. When you're actually obsessed with something to the point it just doesn't turn off, you're gonna get a lot of ideas.
Do you feel like ideas are easy for you to come by?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. It kind of depends. Honestly, I got in a really, really bad funk while writing like the last novel that I've been writing, and for so long, I had like idea constipation. Nothing was coming, like literally nothing. It's almost like the well just turned off.
I had a
And
similar experience. Like I'm very new at wanting to write, but that's like how it began for me. I just couldn't think straight. It seemed like thought constipation, right? Um, so I like to hear that I'm not like this crazy dude that just can't think straight. So when
no,
you're
so
in there, go ahead. Sorry.
oh, so it's not just you. I don't know what it was that kind of got me into that funk. I had like a lot of things happen in my life. Some things that, you know, happened to me professionally and personally and medically, honestly.
Sure.
I think one of the big ones that kind of got to me too was lack of sleep. I became an insomniac about 3 years ago. And I'll tell you what, when you don't sleep,
Oh,
that that just completely shuts down creativity right there. So that probably had a lot to do with it.
it changes who you are. Like it just you cannot be a happy person with sleep deprivation. It is
No.
serious, man. Like people, there's those diseases where they don't sleep, and that causes death. And it just shows you how important rejuvenating your body is.
Yes, it
Um,
is.
so let's say you're in the grind, you're writing a book. What does that process for you look like? Are you an outliner, a pantser, and do you have like a daily word count?
I am a ridiculous outliner. So just going into like a project, I will literally put so much research just into the methods behind the book, you know. Um, and then from there, I will develop an entire outline. I'm like, okay, you know, we've got to have the midpoint at 50%. Got to come up with something good there. We got to have like, okay, the beginnings should be over around chapter 20. Yeah, there we go. And from there, I start putting in like think of a book. This is the way I think of it. Think of a book as like a journey, like a car journey that you're going to take in your car. Okay, the destination is like, I don't know, Yosemite. So you get some ideas. Like I want to stop at whatever town, whatever town along the way. And those are where I'm going to stay. Those are my hotels, which to me are like, you know, the big scenes in the book. And then maybe from there, I can like pick some restaurants along the way or some gas stations I want to stop at. And those are like the little scenes. And I just kind of start filling those in until eventually I have like every single chapter pretty much outlined. And I'll know exactly like, okay, in chapter 22, this has to happen. I may not know exactly what that looks like until I get closer to it, but I have an idea of exactly what it's going to be.
I like that, and I think that your answer kind of frees up some questions I had in my mind, like how deep do you go, and really, it's all up to who's writing it, right? Like, I've heard authors who don't do a lot of detailed outlining, and I feel like I'm going to have to be a little more detailed because I've tried pantsing and I can't remember like anything. It's like I just completely forget where I'm at. And, so I don't think that I'm going to like create character profiles and all that, but to plot those beginning, middle, end, and then kind of climaxes is essential for me. And uh, again, this is a very new passion of mine, and I hope that I get to a point where I feel comfortable enough to actually start writing every day. I'm not there yet. I don't know what. Sometimes I just like sit there and stare at the computer, and I think it's the lack of I don't know what, maybe the lack of confidence is probably the biggest thing. Considering it's not something I do, so I love to talk about it and hear about everybody's experience who's actually done the damn thing, as I like to say. I wanted to throw up Ithra. Do you genre jump when you're stuck?
No, unfortunately, I can't do that because once again, I can only operate with what I'm hyperfixated on, and I've never been hyperfixated on a different genre. I can't even remotely like it won't capture my attention at all. I even tried, for instance, writing like a historical fiction once on the Knights Templar. Um, the research behind it fascinated me, and I researched the hell out of it. I mean, oh my gosh, I learned to read French to research
Oh, wow.
for that book. But when it came to actually writing it, I got bored. I got bored and I couldn't get very far, and I finally just put it away.
What I would do if I tried to, and I just know this about myself, so I don't think it would ever be an option for me to even try. Like, I would hold myself to complete accuracy in every detail, that I would over obsess about that and never get anything done, and never have the confidence to publish it just in case something was wrong. I don't know.
A good editor that can like go behind you and check you and just make sure that all your little details are correct and all your consistency is correct. That's
I
all.
like that. I didn't. I like. There's lots of aspects of this publishing writing process that I haven't heard it, and not that obviously I've heard of what editors do, but is fact checking a part of what an editor does?
It can be,
Okay.
absolutely. If you get an editor worth their salt, well, there's different kinds of editors too. It kind of depends on like what you want. Some editors are more there for you just in the design process to make sure that the content is what it needs to be. Some actually are kind of more like just kind of like looking at like the flow of the entire like work and the chunks, and some like look at it for consistency. Some are looking at it more just on a proofreading level, so it just kind of depends on the type of editor you want to hire, or multiple editors. Some people actually have multiple editors go over their work. I know at one time I was hiring like a content editor, and then a proofreader. With Dragon Mage, I got lucky, and one of my author friends actually was kind enough to volunteer as a proofreader for me, and he caught so many like little tiny typos and stuff like that.
That's amazing that somebody. And I just think about what an editor does, and to be able to pay attention to the story. Depending on, like you said, what kind of editing they do, but pay attention to the story, find those grammatical errors. And the cohesiveness, and does it follow a good timeline, this and that. I think that's impressive, especially to do it over and over again with different stories. And so what you said, content editor, is that what you would say is the type of editor that would check for accuracy and factual content?
I think of a content editor as somebody you would go to before you write one word.
Hmm.
For instance, when I like start out with my outline, I actually, hired a content editor to kind of go over it and go, "Hey, what do you think about this idea? Are all the things in the right places the way they need to be? Are all the ups where ups need to be? Are all the downs where downs need to be? Um, do things kind of mesh? Are they cohesive, or am I like evoking emotions in the wrong places or the wrong emotions? That kind of thing."
I like that. Thank you for that. That's all. I always say, like, those little nuggets of gold. That's it. Um, so thank you for sharing that, and as a part of what you've been doing as well. So sharing that's is beneficial for not just me. I'm sure so many people will be watching this. What part of that publishing process, particularly, would you say is most important to get right to have the chance for a successful book? What part of that publishing process is key to getting that chance for a successful book?
Honestly, the part with a chance for a successful book, hire the right editor. I'll tell you what,
Awesome.
that's the only reason why Dragon Mage even got on your radar is I hired the right editor.
How
My
many?
my editor like literally like cut scenes out of it. There, she was like, no, 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 don't put this in. If you put this in, people will hate it. So I would take it out. Um, and she just kind of like brought it to the attention of people too who like took notice of it and kind of gave it a mention too even before I had it done, and that really helped. I mean, I don't know what I would have done without my editor is Sarah Shorn, and I highly
Yeah,
recommend her. She is a fantastic editor, she's a fantastic author, and I wish I wrote a fraction as well as she writes.
I've had her on the channel, and she acts like what she does is just like this. I was like, come on, Sarah, do you know who you are? Really, do you know what you do? I texted her once. I was like, every book that I start, I always check the editor now, right? That I do this booktube thing, and I'm like, you're in every one of them, Sarah.
Yep, yep,
Uh,
yep, she is. She's so good.
I really respect what she, and I have read some of her writing, and you're right, it's quite poetic and
Oh,
beautiful.
yeah. It just
Um,
drips with gold. It really does.
um, do you have, as a reader? Let's start there. As a reader, do you have a favorite trope? Or, are you into really categorizing tropes, or are you kind of just there to see how the story goes and not such a analytical way?
Honestly, I think my favorite thing in a book more than any trope is, and I think you can see it in Dragon Mage, it's friendship.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
that's what kind of hooks me. That's what keeps me reading. There's those bonds between the characters. If nobody cares for the character, I'm not going to care for the character.
when Marcus hears, I'm not going to go there because there's people who I don't want to spoil it, but the friendship, like either side, they're both. Uh, it's incredible to read because it's hard to not spoil stuff, so I won't. But I loved the friendship. Yes, I'm gonna. That's all I'm gonna say. I think my favorite trope, if somebody was to just say, "Hey, what's your favorite trope?" and not that I think about it a whole lot, because I think if I did in every single book, what trope or it would get too tedious for me. But what I recognize I enjoy it very much is, taverns and adventure. Like, let's start here, but we're going to end up way far away from here. We're going to be scared. There's going to be some risk. There's friendships. There's humanity also. There's things I can relate with. And I would agree with you. It's incredible to read. As a writer, do you think about it may be kind of the same answer, but I wanted to ask anyway. As a writer, do you say, hey, I'm going to write this type of trope, or does it kind of just come out and identified later?
It's really funny because I'm really huge into the whole hero's journey kind of thing.
Mm,
And what's really funny is, okay, don't laugh at me, but I had never heard of the hero's journey until actually very recently. Probably 4 years ago was the first time I had heard the hero's journey even mentioned, which is really funny because I literally studied creative writing at college, but the classes that I took were not focused on story structure or novel structure. They were more about just, the actual like writing process and
mm.
the wording of the sentences and things like that, really. Um, but as it turns out, fortunately for me, everything that I have really written follows the hero's journey hugely. And so I think that that's like the number one thing that I really like think about when I'm actually like plotting out the whole scope of the novel is the hero's journey. So much so that, I mean, I don't know. I bought Campbell, I read it, I just drooled all over it, and I'm like, this is it. This is the way I'm going to write. I don't know if I would ever even deviate from that because there's something about it that I think just gets humanity in the core of who we are, who we want to be. And, there's a reason that everything from, Beowulf to Star Wars, kind of follows that format.
Yes, you hit it. Thinking back to most those movies where at the end you're teared up, or you got your hair standing on your arm. It usually falls within the guidelines of a person who maybe didn't have a lot of confidence, or somebody who didn't have the confidence in that person was probably thought to fail and ends up triumphant. And I would have to agree with you. There's nothing better, and especially in books and movies for me as well.
I think that for me, when I set out to write, I really think of those things that grip me that way. Those books or movies, like when I put the book down or walked out of the theater, I wanted to be that person. I wish I could just go into that movie or book and just live there and be that. And that's really what inspires me to write.
Hearing that has me relating to your experience wanting that in a fantasy genre. When I was in high school, I played football and basketball, and everybody would tell me that I'm 6'5", and I was pretty big in high school. And it's like, hey, you're gonna go pro. It's like, I have no love for football anymore. It tore me up, like my body, but I had an incredible amount of love for basketball, but I sucked at it, right? So I always had these visions of me like dunking the ball, or making that last the winning shot, right? Because I could do that in football, but I didn't have the same passion for it as I did for basketball. So I can relate with the you wanting to be that character, or wanting to be in that movie, because I've definitely felt the same way. My guy, E.L. Montague, wonderful author himself, and one of my the only moderator in my Discord, and a guy that really inspires me to keep wanting to search how to write for myself in my process. He says, have you tried writing side characters? I ended up writing a whole novel for a side character.
Oh, wow. Yeah, kind of. Okay, like when I was talking about my earlier series, I kind of wrote a spinoff series based upon the main character's son, and actually the kids of a couple people there. And so, I mean, I guess that might count as a side character. But other than that, I really haven't like developed side characters too much into like their own story. I just kind of give them character arcs within the books that I write, and try to, make them a little bit of the hero of their own story within their own arc, I guess.
Yeah, I like that. It kind of gives everybody a purpose, right? I feel like that's the most human part for me. It's like a side character, whether it's a main character, side character, what they're after. If it's something I can relate to, that's always going to be a book that I'll always remember. Timothy says, one of my favorite, I don't think this is spoilery, but of course you can always, people get on varying levels of spoiler information. One of my favorite aspects of Dragon Mage were the people immune to magic. Acting as protectors was a great way to use MMO. What is MM? I don't know what that means.
It stands for massively multiplayer online role-playing game. Wow, that's a big chunk of words.
It is.
It's actually really funny that you say that, because I'm like really into MMORPGs and I love playing tanks.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, actually, when I thought of Marcus, I think of him as a tank. So
I like that. I do. So I kind of wanted to. Is that any? Wow, I just completely crapped out of my mouth. I'm getting into learning how to be a part of tabletop role-playing games.
Oh, cool.
I do a podcast with 3 other guys. They're authors. We call ourselves the 4 Beardsmen of Bookpocalypse.
Nice.
Yeah. So, and they're all very familiar. So our next show, they're going to have it all planned out. I was told to come in, relax, man. You don't have nothing to get ready for. You're going to come in fresh, and we're going to teach you and go through the steps. So I'm excited for that. Getting to my question was, is or was tabletop role-playing games something you did or were interested in?
Sadly, no. I always wanted to, but when I was like a little kid is when D&D like started getting popular. It was kind of like back in the late 80s.
Mhm.
And how can I put this? I was kind of a social outcast when I was really little, and nobody would ever play with me. And
No,
so I never found like my like little D&D crew, you know, and so I just never really got into it, which was kind of sad, but I would have loved
no.
it.
Uh, it's funny because I relate to that because I got along with everybody in high school, and the people I played football with didn't understand why I talked to um I don't want to just put people in a category, but those that would like look sort of gothic or and it's like I look at people and I can relate with probably everybody, right? We're all human. And that's all that matters to me. So I understand what you're saying. I never fit into one little spot because my friendships were so vast. I never fit in anywhere, right? And I had a similar experience with, yeah, I never went out on the weekends, but I did have a lot of buddies that said they played like D&D, and I always wanted to be a part of that, but I never was like in the right spot at the right time.
Yeah.
So now at 30, almost 34, I'm going to get it into it because if there's a consistency I've heard, uh, D&D is huge inspiration to a lot of authors. And I get
Mhm.
it. Like you're making things up as you go and in the most creative way, right?
Yeah, I have
So,
a couple of writer friends who are just like so inspired by D&D. I mean, it it definitely takes something about fantasy and just broadcasts it and it just makes it huge. Like, you know, just even a kernel of fantasy, if it exists inside of you, it just amplifies it.
um, I love that. So a couple comments. My guy, John Douglas, this is his famous question he likes to ask authors on my show. If you could fight one of the characters in your book, who would it be and would you win?
If I could fight one, well, obviously I would not like to fight my main character. He
Yeah.
obviously would whip my butt. Um, I'm gonna have to pick my bad guy, Sergen. That little jerk, I just want to like, you know, pistol whip or something. I don't know what to say, but who would
I get it.
win? I would win. I would kick that person's
Word.
yes.
Word. I agree. My wonderful other half popped up here. Just got the kiddos to bed and wanted to hop on and show some love to you both. ML Beard was so excited for your book. She's right.
Oh, well, you know what? I was so excited for this. Literally, I mean, we've been trying to like kind of like do this for a while. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I
I
cannot wait
meant
to
to
do
say
this.
it at the beginning, like you've been so patient. I had to cancel a lot of interviews because of like being laid up, and you were very patient and so nice about it. So I appreciate that.
You're so nice to just kind of like keep remembering me, and, and you know
Oh, of
that was
course.
really cool. That was so nice of you.
There were many, many nights, and that's what I was doing. Like just in the hospital, you're so bored. So a huge book, right, is perfect. John said, "Don't feel bad. I didn't get into D&D until 4 years ago for the same reason." Yeah, John, you're a family guy. Work, man. I get it. Yes, and I understand. And finally getting into it, it's like I hope to have, and I'm not going to hyper focus on it because I think that would ruin my experience, but I hope to gain some insight and some new ideas, right? Because again, I'm very new to a lot of the tropes, a lot of writing styles, this and that, character arcs, and I'm excited to just dive further into it.
Well, I'll
Um,
tell you, one of my good friends raised his family around D&D. Like literally, like as the little kids grew up, they like just they had family D&D night, like you know, like a few times a week, and the whole family is just ridiculously like passionate about it. You walk into their house, it's like a dungeon. I mean, it's amazing.
that is so cool. I completely like believe that, and I can vision it and envision it because sometimes I'll be on TikTok. I'm not a big user of TikTok, but when I do, um, there are these people who build their D&D rooms, and
Mhm.
they've got fog machines, and they've got like real. Oh, it's so cool to see, right?
Yeah.
Just taking it all the way, all the way out there, and I think that's got to be fun.
Yep.
So Rivenworld, how many books do you plan to write in this series?
I don't know. Um, at first it was 3. Um, now I'm thinking it might be more. As I'm writing, more ideas are coming. So I'm gonna try to contain it to 3 books. It may become 4,
I
which
wouldn't
is
be mad. I would not be mad.
we'll see, we'll see. I'll try to wrap it up in 3. What I don't want it to do is, like, have, like, 3 books and a half. So
Sure.
we'll see what I can do.
Yeah, and as somebody who's again very new to the writing aspect of this, I can imagine that that would be a hard hurdle to get through. Knowing what you have in mind and your ideas, and knowing that you don't want 3.5.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know how to tackle that, but I'm excited to kind of learn. Um, I'm looking forward to that so much. I missed it. One of the things that I don't do well yet, and gosh, I hope I get better at it, is checking to make sure there's not these wonderful, and there are always wonderful comments over here. I hope I'm not missing any. So I'm going to check super quick. Wonderful comments. I didn't miss any questions. Good. So the character, I kind of wrote this out, and if it sounds kind of botched, that's because I'm reading my handwriting, and it's not always the best. The character Aram made an impression on me in many ways. When I met him, he reminded me of the younger me. He was shy, kind, felt out of place, often bullied, less fortunate in his life and in other aspects. The word I use to sum up his character is innocent. Um, a boy that is aware of the terrible things in the world, but chooses to focus on what he loves. In Aram's case, that was knots. Knots were his gateway to happiness. What inspired Aram's character?
Me, honestly. Aram is a male me. When I was a little kid, I wasn't into knots. I was into other things like horses or whatever, but I was into them in the same way that, he has his passion for knots. Um, and I was very much, shy and didn't understand why I wasn't well liked. Didn't understand a lot of things about the world, socially awkward, stuff like that. And so I just kind of took all those feelings that I had when I was a little kid and rolled them up and put them into him. And then whenever I got into like a situation while writing, when something happened to him, I would just look inside, how would I feel? What would I have felt back then?
I can absolutely feel that, because I knew it had to be somewhat of a personal adventure for you, because it's I don't know. As much as I related with almost everything that happens with Aram, I was like, man, I have to stop for a second and kind of like remember this is a story. It's not my life. So I just wanted to say, like, it was incredibly personal, and I loved his character, and still think about him, and can't wait to read some
Well,
more. So, of course, what piece of advice would you give to a new author who's willing, or I'm sorry, not willing, who is writing to be a self-published author? What's that big piece of advice you'd say that maybe you wish you would have had?
figure out how to market before you actually like put it out there. There's nothing worse, I think, than wasting so many years of your life and so much passion. And when you're a writer, it's not just you that's like putting yourself out there and just giving up your time. It's your family. It's giving up a lot of time from you. There's a lot of sacrifices to be made and blood and sweat that kind of goes into a book. And to just not even give a thought to how you're going to get this in front of people after making that kind of, Herculean effort, I think is where a lot of people really make mistakes. I know I did. Um, it's a huge process. What you may think it takes to market a book successfully may not actually, be it. I mean, when I was first learning, I mean, the first thing I did was I went to like all these like little books on Amazon, how to market your novel. And
Sure.
it was really amazing to find out, because if you Google these people who write these books, they've got like 5 reviews on their own books. It's like, wait.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that. That's odd.
Do that sometime. Like literally Google some of these people, and it's like, why are you writing this book? Obviously, you don't know how to market yourself. What are you doing?
That's disheartening.
I know, isn't it? It's really sad. And you know, and people think like it's some mystic secret that like there's gatekeepers out there like keeping you from the knowledge of how to market your book. And no, that's really not it. I mean, it's a study. I mean, it's actually as simple as this. Pick some people who you want to sell like, you know? Like for me, I mean, it was like just some of the big names of the time in indie fantasy, like, you know, AC Cobble or Duncan M. Hamilton, you know, do what they did, you know? So I would like look at myself, you know, what is AC Cobble doing? You know, what is, you know, Michael Weishart doing? Where do I see his book? Oh, I see it in Amazon ads.
Oh my gosh, Michael Weishart.
He's all over. I mean,
he's all over Amazon.
Amazon without like, you know, seeing like, there it is, you know?
Yes.
And you know, it's not only that, but I mean, you know, like it's more than that. Like look at Dragon Mage. I mean, I'm, you know, you mentioned the color of the novel cover, you know, it's that color for a reason. When I was like thinking of book covers, I was picking books out that, okay, this is like the audience I want to sell to. What books are big in that category? What do their covers look like? You know, and you know, it was all very intentional.
Yeah, I love that. And I the font too, my wife's a graphic designer, so a lot of this wasn't like in my head until I see what she does every day. And she's really good at it. Me, I would completely like that's a hired job for me. That's not in my skill set. So when I see it, I may not know exactly why it's beautiful, but I can tell you what I find beautiful about it. And the color scheme, the dragon, and hold on, I meant to ask you. I had no idea there were so many variations of dragons. So your dragon on the cover has no extra arms, just wings and two legs.
Yes, I think technically you would have to call it a wyvern, but no, it's a dragon. So sorry for all of you wyvern folks out there. But for me, you know, I majored in biology, and so things have to make anatomical sense to me. And when you kind of look at the animal world out there, I mean, I'm sorry, but bats, you know, everything that has like wings, you know, that is a forelimb, and the wings are the finger bones. So yeah, it does not make sense to me to have a 6-legged dragon, because I'm sorry, that's an insect.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I love that. Yeah, and so I think the conversation you had on TBRCon was my initiation into the varying types of dragons, because I had no clue, but it was fun to listen to those who write about dragons. And
well, I'll tell you, they have like Christopher Poloni and Ryan Cahill. They really did their research into dragons. I just kind of sat on TBRCon and went, wow, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Wow, maybe I should have read up a little bit before I got on here.
I when I was watching, I thought a few things, like Christopher Polini. Like I was just in Walmart, and his books are everywhere. Yes. So that's one of the things that's always amazed me about people such as yourself who write. And I guess I had this misconceived notion or a presumption that authors for some reason didn't want to talk to me. I was so wrong. Every author I've reached out to has just been so incredibly kind, and it's been such a fun experience. Like, I'm at the very beginning of this, and I don't want to ever stop. I think that this talking to people about my passion and what your passion is and how they relate and your experience and I don't know why, it's just one of the coolest things. and never
Well,
thought about doing it before now.
we're both nerds that are interested in the same thing. I'm sorry, I call anybody into fantasy a nerd because I'm sorry, that's what we are. We're in the nerd camp.
I wasn't
but-
aware I was though until lately, and I have to say you're right.
and I say that with the highest esteem, by the way. But anybody in the world just wants to like sit down and talk with people who are interested in things that they're interested in. You know, it doesn't matter if we're a writer or you know, a booktuber or whatever. I mean, come on, what is there better to do? Is there anything better to do than talk about what you love?
That's it. And I always talk, like my dad has been listening to like talk shows for a while, and I was like, Dad, you're just the lamest, man. And I get it now. Like I get it. I like when I drive, I'm putting on a podcast. Or if you know, I'm bored, I'm listening to people who are talking about what I love, and it makes so much sense now.
Yes, it does.
So I know a lot of writers don't read a whole lot. Are you a big reader? And if so, who are some authors that are current authors that you maybe have read in the last few years that have really stuck with you?
Sadly, I am not a big reader anymore. And I don't know what it is. I think that at first it was time. It's hard to write and read at the same time because when you're writing, it's especially when you're trying to pump out, you know, big novels, there's not enough time left in your day and your family is already like hating all over you. Like, why aren't you there for me? You know, it's hard to like look at them and say, you know, I'm sorry that I have been gone for like 4 nights a week writing and now I'm going to go read.
Yeah.
So that's a huge thing, but it's even more than that. I don't know what it is, but I have really a hard time getting hooked on novels anymore, and I don't know what that is. So it really takes something big to hook me. Who has done it lately? Definitely Davis Ashura has done it for me. That's one that you need to like definitely.
Davis Ashura.
Alec Hudson is another one.
Oh yeah, he's
really good. Battle Mage. Oh God, by Peter.
Ryan.
No, it's Peter. Oh my gosh, I should know this. I got it right up here. Peter Flannery.
Peter Flannery.
My bookshelf. That's a fantastic one.
I'm familiar with Alec. Oh, Phil Tucker. I've been wanting to read his books lately so bad. Those covers. Whoa.
Yeah. Awesome. Absolutely awesome.
Now,
so those are some that
darker, right?
Well, you know, lately he's been kind of getting into almost like game lit.
Okay.
His like and his game lit books are really good. I know this because I do his interior formatting.
Oh, that's cool.
I have a hard time like formatting because I'll be sitting there reading. I'm like, oh my gosh. So
I had no idea you did that.
Yeah,
so formatting is in like font and layout and stuff like that.
Yeah, like I do all my own formatting. I do formatting for other people, and
that's awesome.
Probably a lot of the people you read, I formatted for. So
that's incredible.
Oh, I put it in my Kickstarter. Like here, I got it right here.
Oh my gosh! You know how sad I was that I wasn't a reader when that was a Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just gorgeous.
Art and stuff. So
that's just amazing. So show that up again real quick. The book spine. What? Oh my gosh! Like that's just like a museum piece, and it's huge. Oh man! You know what? If you ever have some extras of those, I'll throw all my bank statements at you. That's incredible.
Extras, I'll mail one your way.
Definitely. Oh my gosh, that would be cool. I think that's probably one of the most beautiful. You know, you and Zach Argyle.
Yeah, Zach Argyle.
You guys have a very similar. It's like a timeless leather. I don't know. When I looked at how your book is designed and his book are designed, it just reminds me of what I would find in a museum or just this really nice rich person's private library. It's very gorgeous. So congratulations. That's got to be like, were you a part of? You had to have been. How far were you a part of like building that Kickstarter, the book itself?
Okay, so well, here, let me grab it. So basically, yeah, I formatted the whole cover. I formatted the interior. I actually made these maps on Photoshop, so I did those. I did not do any of the illustration. That's all, the same guy who did, the original Dragon Mage cover, I guess.
Hold on. So when you bend the pages, it makes a picture?
Yeah.
Holy, I had no idea. Oh my gosh, come on. That is cool.
Yeah, so
What do you call that?
it's called a hidden four-edge painting.
A hidden four-edge painting. Come on.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So um so yeah, I'm actually I just realized something. Oh wow. Here's a brief glimpse of what the
That's
next
the
novel
one I seen first.
That's actually the novel cover of Rivenworld Part 2.
Oh my gosh.
So
That's
that's what
so
she looked
cool.
like. That's funny because when I got, I guess, my dummy novels, or what do you want to call it, my prototypes, it didn't have that four-edge painting. So that's the first time I actually noticed that one. They actually put that one on. I thought on the original ones that I got, it was the same picture going both directions, but that's cool. They
Very,
actually did. What
yeah,
was that? I missed the question.
oh, sorry. Let me throw it back. Oh, it was Timothy. Damn, that looks awesome.
Oh, thank you. Thank
Eddie
you.
Castro. Yes, it does. Pern, Anne McCaffrey. I need to read some Anne McCaffrey because you said there's lots of influence from her, and
Mhm.
I now have her on my TBR very close.
Yeah,
And you know,
Caffrey's like one of those really like classic novels that I grew up with that were like really big in the day. Just kind of like the golden age of fantasy. Um, I just so into her. Like the entire like she has this thing where when the dragon hatches, you have like impression. So it bonds with like its future rider, just the way like birds and reptiles, bond with their parents kind of thing.
yes,
And that really, really did something for me in a very huge way. And just the thought of having that kind of connection, the telepathic connection with the dragons, I definitely used that, in Dragon Mage. I can't remember if her dragons actually spoke or not. Like my dragons don't even speak, even telepathically. You just kind of have an idea of what they're thinking. Um, but definitely, that whole telepathic connection came from her.
that's so cool. I love. Again, I've said it a million times. I always do, but hearing the inspirations that the people I enjoy reading have just opens that possibility for me because again, I have not had this vast array of previously read authors, so those influences really, I put a lot of weight on that. I think the first classic fantasy author that I read that was like an inspiration to one of the authors I spoke with was Raymond E. Feist,
Mhm.
and then I talked with Janny Wirtz, and she was kind enough to reach out to Raymond E. Feist, and that's like
Oh,
that. I got to talk to him, and like I definitely didn't deserve as a new author or a new fantasy lover. I realized that I talked to like some of my buddies call him the one of the forefathers of classic fantasy, and
very much
um,
so.
he's a good guy. He talked about the lives that he touched with his books, and he got really emotional about it. So you can tell he loves what he's done, and it was fun hearing his journey. So I just felt super honored. But yeah, that started with an inspiration from
I'll tell you,
another
I'm
person.
jealous because he's one of my absolute favorite novels in the world, as is Janny Wirtz. I read her like way back in the day. Um, and yeah, the fact that you just even talked to those people is like, oh my heart.
So that's what I was kind of saying. Like when I started this YouTube channel, I was like, I was going to do a couple reviews every now and then, and it's turned into something that I'm just proud of. Like, I'm so happy I get to talk to people like you and so many other authors that get to share their experience, and it's like super important and incredible to me. So thank you. What are you working on right now?
Rivenworld too, definitely. It's been trouble. Like I said, I had some issue just even getting it off the ground. I wrote like half of it, and then I got this massive, massive block, and I couldn't write for like a long time. And it took me forever to figure out why. And I should have figured this out sooner. It's my subconscious telling me I was going in the wrong direction. Whenever that happens, it's because there's something wrong.
Okay.
And maybe I can't see it, but my subconscious does. And I just get to this point where it will not let me write another word.
Wow.
And it took me a while to like figure out what was wrong. And then I basically had to just and like start over, man.
That's brave. And you put a lot of work into those pages you ripped up.
Yeah, I did. But
you wanted that right product or that right story at the end.
Exactly. And I can't even write a wrong story. I mean, if I just know that it's going in the wrong direction, this is not what I want, it's just not going to come out, you know?
That's
but now it's coming out. But, you know, it's been hard, though, because when you're out of it for a little while and you don't immerse yourself in it, you know, a book with as much lore and depth as Dragon Mage, you can't just like dive right back into it. It's like, oh no, I need to like go back and read the whole book again and
sure.
Look at the timeline and just refresh myself. What was this character doing? You know, it's like, you know, it's a lot of work just even getting back into that.
I could imagine. And you know, I was just looking at the copyright date. So 2020 was the release of this. Yeah. So yeah, and you did them. I did notice you did the maps. That's super cool. Yeah. So looking back in 4 years this is a clean story. Like for me, this is what I would say. The fat had been trimmed. Like you put out a story that there was no issue following it. And I'll look back on, James Rollins. I really enjoy James Rollins, and he did the Moonfall Saga, which is a fantasy duology. And I really, really liked it. But thinking back, I couldn't tell you what the hell it was about, because he goes in 3 or 4 different places that, and although I loved it, it wasn't cohesive at the end. So that's not the kind of experience I had with Dragon Mage. It was clean. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I know what I'm saying when I say clean. Like when I got to the end of the book, I could recount the events that happened with no issue.
That might be an artifact of outlining ahead of time and not pantsing. That might be, because then I have a chance to kind of like look at it and go, you know, I don't need that chapter. You know what I mean? That might be. I don't know.
I like that. So there's it's funny because everybody that I have on, you know, especially those that I've read and can relate to the book I just read. It's I could go on for so long. So what I'm going to say is I have a lot of really fun ideas I've written down, and I absolutely plan on reaching out to you about a few of those ideas, and very soon. So I want to thank you for just letting me gush about your book and let me talk to you about some of your journey writing it and some of your experiences. And most of all, it's just an honor to be able to say face to face the impression it had on me. So thank you for letting me borrow you.
Well, thank you so much for reading it, and thank you for having me on this show. I really, really love what you do, and you know, you do bring such a passion to this. So it's elevating for me.
Well, thank you for that, and I'll soon have this. I haven't submitted my first review for Before We Go blog, but I am officially a part of that team. When I signed up, a bunch of stuff happened, and I have some reviews I'm working on. This will be either my first or second on Before We Go blog, and Fanfiotic as well. So I'm excited to send that to you. I'm excited to kind of go back and read some while I'm waiting for book 2. Right, I'm going to go back and read some of your previous novels, and excited to do so. Thank you guys for being here, who are live, just commenting away. You're always so amazing. Thank you, so much, ML Spencer, and thank you for you guys that will tune in to do the replay. I'm trying to think. I'm so bad at this. I also often forget my next interview, but I don't think it's for a few days. So I will have it on Twitter. I won't let you forget it. And we will see you next time. Y'all have a wonderful night. And again, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.